It's time for the Voice of Reason podcast. Here are your hosts, Sean Phillips, Andy Van Beber, and Travis Kirkendall.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Andy Van Beber. Right to, I guess it would be my left over on this side. Nope, this side. There you go. That's Travis Kirkendall over there regardless. The man, the myth, the legend, Travis Kirkendall.
Yes, sir.
And our buddy Sean is learning all about hazardous material transportation in the great state of Alabama this evening, serving your U.S. National Guard. You know, for our buddy there, Sean. Yeah, there we go. Serving us, and
That's actually a really good certification.
It is great.
I had it and I let it expire.
You let your hazmat expire? Oh man.
I didn't know what to do with it. Like, go be a truck driver? I don't want to be a truck driver.
True. This is true. But hey, it's so good to be back, man. It's last week I felt empty inside. I felt empty, and no, we had last week was so busy with the Labor Day holiday and everything in between, and life in general. Sean was busy, Travis was busy, I was super busy. We were all super busy. And then this week is, I tell you what, I'll sleep. I think I will effectively sleep when I'm dead, according to the old Bon Jovi song. I will sleep when I'm dead. And it's the beginning of the school year is just always just a grind. So
yeah, I'm sure.
But we've been doing great. We've had track meet, soccer. Bryson started his soccer season last week, and we actually had a match this evening. The boy has 8 goals on the year. I'm pretty proud of that. In 3 games, he's got 8 goals. I'm pretty proud of that. Proud dad. Briley's doing cross country, and my wife is still, I guess, supporting me. So
Right on.
That's all good. What's going on in your world? How? Give us update on Baby Watch 2023.
We're in week 33,
Oh.
so we're getting there. It's funny. We were just having dinner, and it's getting to the point now where I can watch her belly and I just see him move. Like, he's like a little bumps. It's cool. It's really cool. But
yeah,
everything's good with the baby though. We had to check up. I took her to an appointment Friday, and everything's been great. Everyone's healthy and happy, and all things considering, life's good right now.
Well,
so
fantastic. And then we, as always, we want to thank everybody for all your support. We had some good Facebook and TikTok views over the last couple of weeks. Great response. For those of you who didn't join us last time, I just want to make a brief note of this. I didn't tell Travis this, but for those who weren't watching last time, you missed out on some golden stuff. We were being censored live by Facebook's AI. And it wasn't us, it was our chat box. So our chat box, which if you look down here right below, you can see our chat box right here below. On my chat box, what I was seeing everything being displayed, and the AI, I guess, thought that something was not, and it wasn't even anything we were chatting. It was our listeners who were chatting, and some of our content was being edited. So it was, yes. Yeah, so AI's got, we need to go back. Our friend Patrick Connor would love to hear that we are, AI's got us. AI's got us. So anyway, there is that. But we are glad to be back. But a lot of huge, big things happening. we almost had we do have too much for tonight's show. We're going to save a topic until next week to look at involving our president's son, and also we'll probably get into Speaker McCarthy last week is opening up an investigatory panel into the
There you go.
possible impeachment of Joe Biden. That's it. We said it. We said the I word. That's right. Correct. The impeachment of Joe Biden, which again just goes to show you that we are in a sandbox with a bunch of 3-year-olds saying, if we don't play my way, we're going to take our toys and go home.
Can I ask you something?
Yes, please do.
So we've talked about this a little bit online with this whole impeachment thing, and you kind of shared your opinion through text, but like from what's come out on it, and I think it's pretty clear now from the evidence I've seen and the stuff I've heard that there's no way that he did not know that his son was getting money from these agencies
You have to be,
and these people.
you definitely have to be.
So,
he's not that dumb.
all right, in your opinion, obviously we've talked about before how like both parties are, I mean, even when Trump was president, I mean, it was always like they were trying to impeach him. Like Democrats spent more time trying to impeach Trump than they did actually passing useful legislation in Trump's presidency.
Right.
And I know that maybe kind of is kind of why you feel the way you feel about this impeachment, but like given the evidence that we've seen, and it's like I said, it's pretty clear. Do you think that's a means for impeachment? Or do you think it's a stretch?
Anything anymore, I believe that if you dig hard enough, you will find any kind of, I mean, I don't care how clean the closet is. You will find some kind of dirt on somebody. There's no politician who is completely clean. If you work hard at it enough, I believe we could go back through our past 8 presidents, and find impeachable offenses. What it really
I would
depends
agree with that.
when it really does depend upon who is in office, right, and who is in control. What we are getting to the level of is this pettiness of saying we are no, and I actually had this discussion in class today. We are no longer represented by people. Our representative, our Republican form of government, and I'm not saying Republican Party, I'm saying Republican form of government where we elect officials to do our business. Our Republican form of government is no longer, well, it's been this way for a long time, is no longer meeting the needs and protecting the needs of the people. The purpose of a government, the purpose of a political party is to be a guardian for the rights of all people, regardless of whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, gay, straight, Baptist, Catholic, atheist. The purpose of a political party is to run the business of government and be the guardian of the rights of all citizens. What we have accomplished over the last 8 years, like you said, going on 8 years now, these last two, this administration and the last administration, what they've accomplished is this level of pettiness of saying, okay, I can find this, I can find this, I can find this, I can find this now. And many people know what my opinion is about Trump and his involvement with January 6th. I believe that he was deeply involved with it. That, to me, was an impeachable offense. Joe Biden, I mean, we've known about Hunter Biden's shady business deals with the Ukrainians, and we'll talk more about that later. But
Well, it's funny if you go back to like the debates, like before like the whole Hunter Biden laptop even came out, I saw this video. It was a replay of the debates. Trump literally called him out during the debates and was like, "You get paid from like, what do you say? You get paid from China and Russia or whoever."
Yep.
And it ended up being the Hunter Biden laptop thing.
Yeah, and so I mean, Trump has, and it's just how much are you willing to? There's no good that's going to come out of this. You can impeach him. What are you going to accomplish? You're not going to get a conviction.
He's not going to go out of office for it.
No,
It would
So
because I don't think the impeachment. It's not because I know there's different types of impeachment, right? I
no,
don't think
there
the impeachment they're going for is to remove him from office,
right.
correct? It'd be
Well,
something like what happened with Clinton.
so impeachment it basically is the equivalent of like a grand jury presenting in evidence or evidence being presented to a grand jury, and then the grand jury votes for a bill of indictment, which basically means, okay, we believe there's enough evidence to take it to trial. That's all it is. When you're indicted, is your name dragged through the mud? Yeah, your name's going to be dragged through the mud, but you still get your day in court. Okay, so if they impeach Joe Biden, boom, okay, he's indicted. That's all it is. It's a formal indictment of a government official. That person, whether it's a president, whether it's a congressman, whether it's a member of the president's cabinet, that person still gets their day in court before the Senate. Okay? Right now you have a 50-50 Senate with the tie break going with the vice president. Okay? I believe it is what you have to have 66 votes to convict. And so that's obviously not going to happen. There's no way that it's going to happen. In the last Trump impeachment, I think there was one? I think Mitt Romney was the only Republican who voted to convict.
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, and so
And I think it's good that you're explaining this because I think most people they hear impeachment and they think we getting them out of office.
Kicked out
got
of
to
office.
get them out of the office, and
that's
not exactly what it is. And if you think of and the way you just explained it, like dragging a person's name through the mud, then you could make the argument that okay, this has nothing to do with removing him from office. This is about scoring political points and getting their party in power.
And that's all what it is. And I mean, the worst, for example, when Bill Clinton was impeached for lying under oath about the whole Monica Lewinsky thing. Was not, to me, it wasn't an impeachable offense, but he broke the law. Impeachment, if you look at the Constitution, the act of impeachment is saved for high crimes and misdemeanors. Okay? Within the scope of who should have been impeached, okay? In my mind, Donald Trump for January 6th involvement. I know I make people mad when I say that, but January 6th involvement. Richard Nixon.
100%.
If he had not resigned, Richard Nixon would have died in jail. Period. They had so many smoking guns, and then Gerald Ford goes off and pardons him. So impeachment. The worst that happened to Bill Clinton was, I believe, he was censured, which is basically a public, slap on the wrist is the equivalent of all it is. It's a slap on the wrist. And so that is possibly the worst that could happen, is that if they get Joe on this, they'll say, well, here it is, slap, done and done. I mean, it's not going to amount to anything. So
yeah.
But I will, since we are talking about the Senate, I mean, one thing we do want to give a hats off to, we want to Mitt Romney, and that was that today? He announced.
I believe it was announced today so it was September 13th. So what's yesterday?
Yesterday. So Mitt Romney, who is 72, I believe, was what that article said.
76.
76. Thank you. So he's 76. Announced yesterday that he is not running for re-election. Good job there, Mitt. That is the whole thing about our argument about how old Congress is. At the same time, last Monday, Nancy Pelosi did come out and say, hey, I'm running for re-election at whatever age she's in her 80s. I'm not for sure as to.
Yeah, she's 82 or 83.
I was thinking 82. Really, so there's another. There is another. Another, geriatric.
83. She's 83 years old.
I saw a political cartoon, and I posted it on my Facebook feed the other day, and it was this political. I forgot what newspaper it was from, but it was this teacher standing in front of the classroom, and she has on her projector. She's showing a picture of the White House, and she's like, she's saying to her students, "Okay, students, what is this?" And one kid raises his hands and says, "A nursing home." And I'm like, "Yeah, exactly." But some of the quote that,
I gotta,
huh?
or go ahead, share what he said first, because
Well,
it is a, I
the fact that
applauded him for it.
of what he did, what he said in that article, I should have had that brought up.
I got some of his statements pulled up
Yeah,
right here.
go ahead and read that statement about the younger generation.
Okay, so this isn't the same article, but it's so it doesn't have the full statement, but he basically goes on to say, at the end of another term, I'd be in my mid 80s, and he said, frankly, it's time for a new generation of leaders. And the article, that's this article, but the other article quoted him as saying something along the lines of, I think we need a younger generation of leaders to deal with
To start
this
dealing with your
generation's problems.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's like, it's time for another generation to step up and do this, which is something
totally
we've talked
agree.
about before with like
Totally
we've
agree.
brought up the age of politicians and we've bashed Biden plenty of times. Um, and I applaud him for one saying that, what, hey, I'm done, my time's over, recognizing that, hey, if I go into my 80s, obviously I'm not fit to be a leader, but then also him saying that, like, like, hey, it's maybe it's setting an example for his peers and colleagues to be like, hey, it's time, like, we
Well,
really need to get out of office. We're too old for this shit.
and yeah,
Um,
in that same article that you sent me, I believe it said there were there was one Republican and 3 Democrats who are also not seeking reelection, who are also either in their late 60s or in their 70s. And
Good.
again, hats off to those guys for recognizing, because I think that's part of the issue that we see in America today. That, again, going back to my statement about a Republican form of government, are they is are our representatives a true representation of the American populace? Well, the simple answer is no, because you have 70-year-olds, 80-year-olds. The average age, and we've said this before, the average age of a congressman is 58 years old. Okay, when you bring up the what whatever our demographic is for the United States, and the voters of whatever it is we have now, I think it's I don't know what the number of eligible voters that we have in the United States at this exact moment, but when you look at the amount of the eligible voters that we have, I'm just going to bring that up real quick. Eligible voters in the United States. So in the 2020 election, we had 80 million voters in the last election, and that's only 66% of the eligible
Mhm.
voters. So by that account, that would put us way over 100 million voters. Okay,
Agreed. Yeah.
you cannot, when you look at the turnout, the last election said turnout was higher among married than unmarried citizen. Voting age population turnout was higher among veterans than non-veterans. Native-born citizen voter was greater than 41% of naturalized citizens. There was all the immigrants were flooding the blah 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 blah, whatever. But hats off to Mitt Romney for I think doing like you said, being an example for his coworkers, for people, for taking the stand and saying I'm going to do what's right. So hats off to him for
Yeah.
that.
And I want to continue with this conversation. So Romney's doing this and saying what he's saying. So recently, let me just read this article for you. The title is called, "Is it sexist to want Dianne Feinstein to retire?"
Dianne Feinstein.
Feinstein. I'm sure you're aware
yeah.
who this is.
Oh, she's a representative from
Okay,
California. She's another ancient
Yeah.
relic from the past that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so is it sexist to want her to retire is the name of the article, right? So I'm just going to read this first paragraph. It's comical. Last week,
Okay.
Politico published an article about Representative Nancy Pelosi in which the former House Speaker was asked, predictably, whether her home state's 90-year-old senior senator, we just said, should step down. Showing evident irritation, Pelosi told the reporter that there was a sexist double standard when it came to assessing the capability of aging politicians. Dianne comes along and then they're making such a fuss, she said, It's a guy thing, but that's the way the world is. Pelosi asked a reporter whether he would ever say anything about any of those other guys that they should leave. You never ever wrote about them. I would argue there has been countless articles about Joe Biden of he should step down, and Mitch McConnell, who's had a stroke on stage twice this year.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, this is a growing concern with our leadership is like, are these people fit for leadership? And I can tell you right now, someone who's 90 years old, I don't care. That's not sexist. They're too old and not fit for the job. And 82, 83, Nancy Pelosi too, she has no reason to be in politics. She's made millions. She's 83 years old. There's not even a chance she's going to live through her next term.
So that's going to be, and to me, that statement right there proposes a very interesting dilemma, because if Joe gets reelected, Nancy Pelosi, Dianne Feinstein, all of these guys get reelected. So we're going to have, if you're a senator and you're getting reelected into your prime example, Patrick Leahy of Vermont. He is a Democrat from Vermont. He was elected the year I was born, 1974. I believe he is the majority. I believe he's the majority whip, or he's either the majority whip or the Speaker pro tem for the Senate. He has been in office since 1974. By that, I would almost venture a guess that man is well into his 80s. Okay, so with that being said, why? Let me just ask you, why don't you think the younger generation is stepping up? Why don't we have? I mean, I already know the answer that I would give, but why don't you think we see younger 20s, 30s somethings running for Congress? I'm asking.
I'm sorry. I'm reading this question here, but
I'm just saying. Why would you?
I'm reading this
Why
article.
don't you think we have more 20 or 30 somethings running in for Congress?
Why? Well, for starters, I think it's I don't want to say gentleman's club per se, because
No.
you know what I mean when I make the
rich
statement.
white
It's a
guy,
gentleman's
rich
club.
white guy club.
Yeah, it's not. Unfortunately, I believe in the quote unquote American dream that you can do anything, but politics is one of those things, especially when you get to that political level. I feel like you really have to know the right people. You got to pay the right people. I just feel it's very skewed, and to get to that level, I don't think it's quite as simple as, oh, you get the majority vote, you give the people what they want, you get voted in. Unfortunately, that's how it should work.
So are you ready for
Here's-
this? Let me give you this list right here. So you mentioned Dianne Feinstein, who is retiring, 90 years old. Chuck Grassley, Republican of Iowa, 89. Grace Napolitano, Democrat, California, 86. Bill Parcell, Representative, New Jersey, 86. Eleanor Holmes Norton, D.C. Democrat, 86. Harold Rogers, Republican, Kentucky, 85. Maxine Waters, Democrat. Now, these are some of your power players, 85. Stony Hoyer, Maryland, another power player, Democrat, 84. Nancy Pelosi, 83. James Claiborne, Democrat, South Carolina, 83. Danny Davis, Democrat, Illinois, 82. Bernie Sanders, Independent, 82. John Carter, Texas, 81. Mitch McConnell, 81. Frederica Wilson, 80. Anna G. Issue, Democrat, 80. Representative Kay Granger, Texas, 80. Representative Rosa DeLauro, Connecticut, 80. Senator Jim Reich of Idaho, 80. Virginia Fox, Republican, North Carolina, 80. Those are your 20 oldest members of Congress.
Mhm.
Okay? So, to me, it is you're not incorrect in saying a gentleman's club. It's not a rich. I mean, but it is to me. When you look at the representatives of Congress and in the Senate as well, what are the majority of these guys? Millionaires. They are over the age of 58, and they're white, and they're men.
Well, think about it too. Like politics is very business. And what I mean by that is like if they're not half the time these people are in office writing legislation and doing whatever they do, I would say more than half the time than they're doing that, they're campaigning, they're getting funding, they're trying to boost their campaign and get votes and get views and get their message out there or whatever. So I think there's so much money that goes into it that the average person to get into politics like that, you have to have connections. You have to be a lot of these people, they come from rich families, and that's the only way. It's a money game to get into politics, unfortunately. It's not about getting the popular vote. It's about how much money can you get from who can you please who. That's why we talk about how that's like it's part of the controversy with like people in government buying stocks, people that write legislation buy stocks.
Conflict
Well,
of
who
interest.
funded their
Right.
campaign?
Right.
The people they're writing legislation for the people they own stocks of, you know? So I think I think that's a big part of it.
Let me ask you this.
And
So
okay.
so here's your trivia question for the day. And I'm looking at this right now. Of the 435 members of the House of Representatives and the 100 senators, how many do you believe are under the age of 30?
Under 30?
Under 30.
Oh, I'm gonna go with not even 10%. I'd say 5 or 8%, maybe. No, not even. Not even.
Two.
Less. Yeah.
Two representatives, not percent. Two. Two representatives. One's 28, one's 20, and the other one is 25. Newly elected. Where is he from? From Florida. 25. And that is the bare minimum. And then, now we do have a number of 30-year-olds. There's a large number. I'm scrolling down through this list. There is a large number of 30-year-olds. I'll take that back. I lied. There are three. Here's another one. There are three members of Congress who are under the age of 30. Three. And we to go with what Mitt Romney was saying. Yes, we do need to turn this over to this younger generation.
Well, part of it is we need term limits. I think it's so obvious now that career politicians are ruining things, and we need. I think that, and we talk about checks and balances in our government, and I think term limits should be a part of that
Yeah.
for like government on itself. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's the right term or not, but I think you understand what I'm trying to say with that. Because like,
The thing is, though, you have to be careful on how, because I believe there was a court case that came before the Supreme Court. I want to say it was 4 or 5 years ago, on the constitutionality of term limits for Congress. There was something about, I forgot what the name of the court case was, but there was something about the constitutionality of term limits, and just to me it's a no-brainer. We put two terms, you know.
what was the issue with the previous bill that they tried to go through with it?
What was?
Was it one of those bills where they tried to hide some shit into it, and it's like, yeah, no
I'm
wonder
sure
it got
I'm
denied,
sure
or
there
was
was
it like,
probably some meat into it. There was. We do it on the state level.
yeah,
we
I know. There's been a call for it,
Yeah,
and
I mean, we do it in Missouri, and it was okay. It was a long time ago. It was U.S. term limits versus Thornton, and this was in 1995. The states cannot impose additional restrictions such as term limits on its representatives in the federal government beyond those provided by the Constitution.
interesting.
So but like I said, that was 1995. So hey, don't try to limit your congressman's. But
Well, wasn't I believe it was Nikki Haley at the Republican
who said
debate, didn't she? That was one of the talking points she had, right? She
she
had brought
said
up
she
term
said
limits.
she said she didn't say term limit. She was talking about I believe it was over every representative over the age of 72 or any politician over the age of 72 has to go through some kind of, I don't want to say
Okay.
mental, it was like mental fitness test. Does that sound right?
It
Mental.
was okay. Yeah, that sounds right. And hey, look, that's a step in the right direction.
It is, but I think
But again, here, hey, let's before I say that, who is giving that test, and how do we know that's in fact valid?
yeah.
Because we've been hearing that Biden is great. He's healthy as ever. He's super
Who-
coherent, which
Yes, the president's
Clearly-
doctor is going to say that.
clearly
Yes.
he is not. And I don't buy whatever any of those doctors are saying about him.
No.
You know, I heard there was an article that came out 4 days ago. Kamala Harris did an interview with like the Face of the Nation
Yes.
or Face the Nation.
Through-
I'm sure
yep.
you saw the headline for that where
Yeah.
they had asked, what are your concerns? There's a lot of growing concern with the president's age, and she basically, I got her quote here, and it's
Go
just,
ahead.
I don't know, interesting language. I pick up on this kind of stuff. Is they said, are you prepared to be commander in chief? And she said, yes, I am, if necessary. But Joe Biden is going to be fine. So it makes me wonder, is
no.
that really, are they really going with it? Are they really going for a second term of those two? And that statement right there tells me that there's no way he makes it through that second term.
No. I mean, how many times?
And
I've lost
I'm sorry.
track. I've lost track of how many times he's fell. I have literally lost track. I mean, there's some. I saw a Facebook reel the other day where the guy mashed together all of Joe Biden's falls. Now, granted, the man is in his 80s, and I get that, but come on.
And I'm going to bash Trump here too.
Oh yeah.
He's 77 years old. If he's
Trump's the
president
same
next
thing,
year,
yeah.
he'll be 78 years old, and by the end of his term, he will be 82 years old. So
And we thought
all
Reagan-
right, say he's mentally capable now, right? Say he's still great at 78. At that age, that can change in a year. That can change in 2 years. It happens, and it's a risk. And he's older. He could die from a fucking heart attack. He's not a healthy individual. I mean, he plays some golf, but like the guy doesn't like. I don't know. I agree with I think there just needs to be an age limit. Period. I don't even think it's like, well, after this age you get mental tests. No, I think we have an age minimum. There needs to be an age maximum.
Well,
And there,
the two incident, or is it 2 or 3 incidents now? We mentioned Mitch McConnell.
2 incidents now.
And you said
Clearly, he
he's-
is not
those are
capable.
So what you call those? The only reason I'm familiar with this is because my father-in-law had, and my sister-in-law has had multiple of these. They're called TIAs. They're basically mini strokes. Okay, and with these TIAs, what you saw. Okay, so I firsthand witnessed it. So my sister-in-law, she had we were I remember it's like it was yesterday. It was 7 years ago. We were going to we were all of us in the van going to go to watch a movie down in Wentzville, and we're driving in the van, and my sister-in-law and I we just jabber back and forth. We love talking with each other. And she's she's mid-sentence, and she just stops. And I thought she was falling asleep or something, but she just stopped. And her eyes are open, and her eyes are locked on and looking ahead, and we're like, Donna, are you? And, and so we take her, we put her in the hospital, we take her to the emergency room, she checks out fine. The doctor says, hey, I want her to stay with you guys for a couple days. Fine. So she stays, and she spends the night with Briley in her room, and Briley had bunk beds at the time. Briley was sleeping top bunk. And I went in to wake him up. It was a Saturday morning, and I'm going in to wake up Donna and Briley, and Donna's sitting there, and she's talking to me, and then just that same look of Mitch McConnell. Whew, nothing. And I've seen this before. I've seen this, and to me, there needs to be somebody in the room good Lord, Mitch McConnell's wife needs to be advocating for her husband. At this
Yeah,
point,
for real.
if I'm the spouse of if my not even of a politician, if my wife in her job gets to a point where it is, and there's been a couple times I've just told her resign. I mean, we're in our 40s. Okay, she's actually older than I am, but there's been times I told her quit. If it's stressing you out that much and it's putting that much strain on your body, quit. And it's obviously it's evident with Mitch McConnell that you're okay. If you're just sitting there and
Ah, there it is.
yeah, I had to get it in there. But if that's the case, I mean, if I'm his wife, I'm like, okay, he's stepping down. He's stepping down. But
It blows my mind.
yeah.
Blows my mind.
But along that conversation since we're on the topic of Congress, we are getting to that magical point again in the congressional calendar and on the political calendar of reaching the debt ceiling. We are at, as of right now, and I can bring this up and show our viewers here on the screen. As of right now, we are at 32.
Where's the sound effects? Add the sound effects to it.
30,
It pops up.
32,963 trillion. Or no, I'm sorry, 32 trillion 963 billion 440 million. Da, 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 da. So there you go.
Really quick. I've said this many times before. I want everyone listening to stop, and I want you to try to comprehend how much money that is. Guess what? You can't. You cannot comprehend how much money that is. The human mind cannot comprehend how much just $1 trillion is. If you just break down it into time, if you break down the money value into time, it's anyway. Sorry, I had to get that in there.
No,
it's ridiculous.
but
I don't know how we're ever going to pay it off.
Here we go right here. So if you look in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen right now, there it is. This is usdebtclock.org. This is I use this at least once every school year. I used it this morning. We were talking about deficit spending in our in my modern world class, and we were talking about how the French were doing it. It was one of the causes of the French Revolution. But yeah, when this let me just bring out this little nugget of joy right here. If you look right here, and I don't know if you can see probably not, but if you look at this
I can't see it.
90, if you were to every man, woman, and child in the United States, if you were to break down the debt equally amongst everybody, it would be 90. Every man, woman, and child in the United States would pay $98,223. If every tax, so that's not fair to go to kids. All right, so every debt per taxpayer, $254,000. Okay, that
I have an idea. Let's just pay more taxes. Pay your fair share. The government will pay off your debt. You can trust them.
Well, and so if you look over here, so here's another stat over here so it says income tax revenue right now. Income tax revenue from the United States tax, from the IRS, 2.3 trillion is what we're bringing in. Corporate tax revenue, $540 billion. Let's see, how many zeros? 1, 2, 3. There's 100. That's a million. I'm sorry, 540 billion and $2 billion. And then payroll tax revenue is 1.5 trillion. That's the trillion. And then the other kicker though is this that we're only getting 70 billion in tariff tax revenue from imports. So when you start looking at the numbers like that,
Got to raise taxes. That's all. Just raise taxes.
but nobody wants to raise taxes.
I'm being sarcastic.
Yeah, I know. Recently,
today.
this week we had which we haven't had at Clopton in a while. We have a foreign exchange student and I'm not going to say any names or anything
From
like
where?
that. From France, okay,
Okay.
and the kids are already asking her like tons of questions and all of this stuff about this, and this. And I remember when we had foreign exchange student from Germany. We had one from Germany. We've had some from Italy.
Got a few from Germany.
Yeah, and the one we had this one guy from Germany, and he's actually, I don't know if you knew this about him, but he actually is a model now for Calvin Klein. But he is a
Is he for Calvin Klein?
yeah.
Oh, right
Yeah.
on.
But
Good for him.
but he said you Americans rave on and on about your taxes and your high prices, and he was talking about and he only knew this because I believe it was his either his dad or his uncle, I couldn't remember, worked for the government. And he said like the average, and he was a junior when he came to us, and he was like, we pay between 70 and 72, I think 75% in taxes. But we got everything free. But you don't hear about deficit spending in Germany or France or Italy or Great Britain, or you hear about it
Yeah.
with us. I don't know. I and with that and on that same, we have here's another. So here's this here. Who would you say, you can't see this, Travis, but the viewers can. Who would you say is next in line with us, next to us in debt? Who would what country would you say is the next?
Either I know I'm gonna be wrong if it's either China. I think it's some weird country.
No,
Is it China or Russia?
It's China.
It is China. Okay.
So their
there's been
national
rumors of
debt
them being like
14,
economically bad
14
right
trillion. So here's your top 10: USA, China, Japan, Germany, the UK, India, France, Italy, Brazil, Canada. Those are your top 10. Okay? And China is not even they are $18 trillion behind us. And they outpopulate us by over a billion people. They have 1.4. We have 335 million. They have 1.4 billion people. And to add insult to injury, so with the debt clock, with the debt, Joe Biden, what was it? It was leaked out. So Vladimir Zelensky, the president of the Ukraine, is coming to the United States shortly, soon, to meet with members of Congress and to meet with the president. And the president is prepared to offer $21 billion to the
Keep in mind, we've already given anywhere between 75 to 80 billion dollars to them already.
Okay. I am for fighting for democracy. But what I'm beginning to see with this whole Ukrainian thing is a quagmire that we are not going to escape. Do you feel that, Travis, or are you of a different mindset on that? Or
So I followed the war quite a bit with some news channels and podcasts, and basically this war, it's very similar to World War I in terms of what it's becoming. And trench warfare, the gains that both sides are getting are very minimal. The lines are getting drawn, and it's not moving. And it's becoming a money pit. And it's funny when this first happened, when Russia first invaded Ukraine. I remember I was very vocal in saying we needed to support the Ukrainians, and
I was too.
And we were, and that was the narrative that was being thrown around, and two, at the time, it was just from what we knew, that's why we made that decision. And from the information that's come out, if you look at the history of NATO, and you see the why of all this and how this all played out, and now you see where we are at and what it's actually getting us, I see no benefit to breaking our economy and spending our taxpayers' money to a war that, quite frankly, I think 80 to 90% of Americans don't even agree with and are becoming more and more vocal against it. I mean, you read any comment section when stuff like this comes out, and people are just blasting, like, why are we spending money on this? Why are we funding this war? Why are we over there? This has, and I'm getting to that point too, where it's like, what are we looking to accomplish here?
What's
Obviously,
the end game?
Ukraine joining NATO is just going to make the world tensions. It's not going to solve anything. It's going to make things even worse.
Well,
I
when you talk world tensions, North Korea, Kim Jong Un,
they
Kim
were
Jong
just
Un
in Russia.
is in Russia right now. He is in Russia right now, meeting with Vladimir Putin. They are meeting over in the Far East. I forgot what region it was of Russia, but they actually met
Yeah,
at what's called the Cosmodrome or the Cosmodome. It's basically Russia's. It's one of the branch of their space agencies of where they're and basically to show off, hey, we have the capability of putting stuff in. And if that doesn't scare you, it should, because I mean, that's one step from saying, okay, we can put nuclear silos into space. Then we're back to the war game state of mind that we were in during the height of the Cold War in the
I think
80s.
we're already getting there, man.
I mean, right now, per there should be no missile launch platforms in space anymore by the SALT or the it was either the SALT or it was the START treaty. Yeah, it's the START treaty, the Strategic Arm Reduction treaty. Yeah, and so we should not have any nuclear platforms in space. We have subs that are I mean, some of our buddies in our circle have served on subs that have sat below the ice up above the Arctic Circle for 6 months at a time, housing nuclear weapons. We have,
Fun.
yeah, I'm sure that, yeah, 6 months with a bunch of guys in a can under ice. There you go. But I'm with you, Travis. What's our end game? What is our Because all we're doing, I would love to see where we're at, where the organization that keeps track of the doomsday clock. I would love to see where we're at on the doomsday clock right now. We've got to be at 11:59. We've got to be at 11:59 right
Tensions
now.
are high. Tensions are high.
If I'm to look at this situation though, if I'm a U.S. citizen, and this goes back to what we were saying earlier when we were talking about representation in Congress, the average American, I think it would be safe to say, the average American does not want to go to war. And
No,
who I was
I would
watching,
agree. Yeah.
and we are. I know Sean is. I don't know if you've watched any of Travis, but there is one of my favorite guys who does a talk show now is Jon Stewart, who does The Problem with Jon Stewart.
Yeah.
And I think we actually posted this on our group chat too the other day. Jon
What was
Stewart,
that? The I sent over when he was interviewing
yeah,
the people from the other
when he was at
countries?
the last
Oh, great.
he was at the last G8 summit. So Jon Stewart went to the last G8 summit of all the G8 countries, and he sat down with a bunch of G8 leaders, and he's asking them, "Hey, can you count on us to be the, World War III? Are you coming to the party? Are you going to be along? And of course, Jon Stewart's being Jon Stewart, but the world leaders are like, who's at the lead? Is it the United States? Well, if the United States is at
Yeah.
the lead, then they need to kind of practice what they're
What was it?
preaching.
To quote what the French guy said, he's like, "America first is America alone."
Exactly.
And
Well, and that
we're our quote unquote warmongering and our world police force duty it's grown. It's not getting a good reputation. People are getting tired of it. And us especially. I think the citizens are getting tired of it. I mean, it's breaking our economy. It's breaking. I think people are tired of seeing their money go to a government that's just sending it to fight a war that we're not even part of. when
We
at the
don't have a
same
dog in
time
the
we have
fight.
citizens in Maui who just lost all their homes and we give them $700 checks?
Yeah.
How come we didn't send 21 billion over there to help our own people?
In Maui.
You
If
know, it's so ass backwards, man. And
so, the
this
last
was well,
the last survey that
go ahead.
I've found here, and I'm just doing just an open search. This was August 3rd of this year. CNN poll conducted by SSRS, which is I guess some survey. Overall, 55% say the U.S. Congress should not authorize additional funding to support the Ukraine versus 45% who said Congress should authorize such funding. 51% say that the U.S. has already done enough to help Ukraine, while 48% say that we should be doing more.
And that's a poll from that poll's total bullshit. Let me ask you something. This would be a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Is it constitutional for our government to do what they're doing? Because let's be point blank, we're funding a proxy war.
We are. Where it's
and
war,
I know you can spin it as like, well, it's part
making
of national security and all this other but
okay, so
do you think our forefathers
a little
in
bit
mind?
Well, yeah, a little bit of history here. To go back in time when the United States was really starting to step onto the world stage. We were moving from the point of being a third-rate agricultural experiment to being a world power. Was when we really stepped onto the stage was during the Spanish-American War, 1898, 1897, 98, somewhere in that area. And at the time, this is when McKinley is president. And McKinley we're starting to build a steel-based navy. We're building a steel-based navy. Teddy Roosevelt is the Secretary of the Navy, who at the time, Teddy Roosevelt, and I know many historians will be mad at me when I say this, but Teddy Roosevelt was the biggest warmongers Teddy Roosevelt was the Donald Trump of his day without the social media. Okay?
100%.
And so if you've read anything about Teddy Roosevelt, he was on the speaking as the Assistant Secretary of the Navy. He was on the speaking tour at a lot of U.S. Colleges, and he was lecturing on how this is our time for us to step on the stage. Okay, so we handily win the Spanish-American War. We then, then McKinley is up for re-election in 1900. He is assassinated in 1901. And lo and behold, everybody wanted Roosevelt out of the way because he was such a loudmouth and he was such a, he was out there. So let's put him in the vice presidency. Let's put him in the vice presidency because that's where everybody goes to politically die. Okay? And lo and behold, McKinley gets assassinated. Now you have Roosevelt as president. Okay? Roosevelt was a firm believer of a doctrine that was published in 1824 by President James Monroe. Okay, at the time, the Monroe Doctrine. The statement in 1824 was the Monroe Doctrine that said anything that happens in the Western Hemisphere, okay, North America, Central America, South America, Caribbean, Pacific Rim, out in that. Anything that happens in the Western Hemisphere is our business. European nations stay out. Okay, so we had issued that. So and that was, in 1824, nobody was taking us seriously. Okay, fast forward then to Roosevelt. Roosevelt then adds a statement to the Monroe Doctrine called the Roosevelt Corollary. The Roosevelt Corollary basically says, we will come to anybody's aid who really, within the Western Hemisphere, we have the right to intervene. We have the right to step in any situation. We have the right to step in. Okay? Go a step further. Harry S. Truman then issues the Truman Doctrine. The Truman Doctrine said anywhere in the world, and this is aimed at communism at the time, anywhere in the world that someone is under forced subjugation by an outside party, we will come to the aid of said country. Okay? At the time, that was aimed at communism. Now, different presidents and their foreign policies have added different statements to that. But starting with James Monroe way back in the day when we were, like I said, a third-rate agricultural experiment, fast forward to Roosevelt, and then really push the aggression button with Truman, and now we're onto this world scene. So now, and you put it perfectly, the narrative that was sold to us, which was partially true, there was some truth to it, that the Russians were invading the Ukraine, but when you look at the giant picture of things, we had made pledges to Russia way back when that said, we're not going to knock on your door with NATO countries. We're not going to do that. And we violated we violated everything that we said. Now, that's not saying Putin's not a douchebag. Putin is a huge douchebag. He is a tyrannical leader. He has rewritten the Constitution for Russia so many times to make sure that he gets to stay in power. He's a total mind case. He needs to. I'll go on record as saying, and Facebook, you can edit me out for this too. I'm on record as saying they need to remove him from power. Okay, but you are exactly correct in what you're saying in that this is a proxy war. This is what this reminds me. This reminds me of when we helped fund the Afghan war in 1979 versus the Soviet Union. When we provided funding, of all people, the CIA provided funding to Afghan warlords, which, by the way, one happened to belong to a South Floridian family with the last name of bin Laden that we helped fund to fight the Soviets. It's just like, to quote Joe DiMaggio, it's deja vu all over again. Okay? We're going through... Oh, I'm not Joe DiMaggio, Joe Garagiola. But I'm wrong. Anyway, Yogi Berra. It's deja vu all over again. But it's just like replaying my mind. Quick side note, U.S. history kids, this is why you study history, so you don't make the same mistakes again. And we're making the same mistake again. The Soviets fought Afghanistan for 9 years until Soviets finally pulled out. We're supporting this war in the Ukraine. What are we going on now? Are we February? So we are a year and 7 months now.
We're going on 2 years.
Yeah,
soon.
And we're no closer to the end than what we were from day one.
Yeah, and our leadership still keeps saying endless support. I mean, how much longer can we keep throwing money at this? Like, I think when I was supportive of like us supporting Ukraine, I don't think I realized the cost and like what the U.S. government was planning to do by support. Which I don't know. At the end of the day, like again, like you said, if you look at the history of this and look at how this war started, we aren't exactly innocent here, and it's no shit Putin did what he did. And even like the rumors of, again, this is, I don't know if this is true or not, but supposedly like I'm sure you've read about supposed biolabs in Ukraine and how the U.S. has helped fund Ukrainian studies of like biochemical weapons and stuff like that, and that could have played a factor. There's been mixed things on that. I've read some contradicting articles with it, but either way, we really did instigate this.
Oh yeah.
And granted, at the end of the day, I'm not defending Russia for invading.
No.
But at the same time, we're not necessarily the good guys.
We're not. Yeah, we're not clean. We're not clean at all on this. If you're to go back and you look at some, if you were to, I wish I would have known. We had. This is way back in our chat. This is probably back from heck, I don't even remember when. But we had this discussion privately amongst ourselves about how we're not. I mean, this was Russia reacting to a bunch of broken promises that we did. That, I mean, it's Russia being purely reactionary now. I mean, Putin obviously is using it as a means to bolster himself and make himself look better. But at the end of the day, it's a war. It's a war in which nobody's going to win. There's not going to be. You can't say there's going to be a clear winner. There's not going to be a clear loser. You know, it's a quagmire that we are not going to be able.
We're not winning that war.
No.
The only people that I don't think anyone wins that war. There's only losers in this war.
Mm-hmm.
There's just too much. I mean, I remember looking at the numbers. I don't have it in front of me. I think it was like 500,000 people have died already in this war. You'd have to look at the numbers. It was something ridiculous. Like, this isn't just like some small skirmish. This is like a war of attrition that's going on the two sides. I mean, Russia's doing their typical, let's throw bodies at the problem until we win the fight. And I mean, Ukraine's, how many more soldiers are they going to have? You know, it really is becoming a war of attrition.
Ukraine
It's very much mimicking World War One.
Russia's military casualties are approaching 300,000, including as many as 120 deaths and 170 to 180,000 injuries. Ukrainian deaths are close to 70,000 with 100,000 to 120,000 wounded.
And we're not even 2 years into this, and there's no end in sight.
Mm-mm. No, and that actually is those are numbers from last month. So that is Reuters. That's Reuters reporting from last month.
So I don't know. We want to pay off our debt. I think we need to stop funding foreign wars.
Well, we need to be focusing on where our true problems.
Yeah,
lie.
but I think that's a good start.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you guys so much for joining us this week. I know that I'm seeing some people just now starting to come online to watch us. We did it to you again. I'm sorry. But we moved our time back. Sorry.
I like the 8 a.m. time or 8 p.m. time, guys, because I wake up super early in the morning. So I always ask if we can do 8. If we're able to.
I'm actually always accommodating because when you're getting close to that, you'll get there someday, Travis. When you get close to that 50-year-old threshold, it's like, why when I was a child, I always look back, I'm like, why did I fight bedtime? Why did I fight naps?
Oh, me and my wife always say it's the best time of the day.
It is the best time of the day. Yeah, and you'll learn. You'll sleep when the baby sleeps. Anyway, my name is Andy Van Bebel for Travis Kirkendall and our absent Sean Phillips, who we hope will be with us next week. This has been the Voice of Reason, broadcasting on Spotify, Twitter, Facebook, Twitch, YouTube. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you all again next week.
Thank you for listening to the Voice of Reason podcast. Be sure to check out our other content on Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok.